All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, with the start of a new college football season right around the corner, who are the head coaches that are going to be on the hot seat? I want to start with Chip Kelly. Kelly has 3 years under his belt as the head football coach at UCLA. He's 10 and 21 over that stretch, zero bowl wins, zero winning seasons, and he's 1 and 2 against USC. And you think about Kelly, and of course, once he came to UCLA, there was a big hoopla as far as hoping that he would turn things around. And that has been far from the case for UCLA. And I think, Kelly and the Bruins coming to this season looking and needing to make a significant turnaround in order for him to save his job. I mean, listen, UCLA paid him a king's ransom. But with that said, they really haven't gotten anything for it. And I think the opportunities are there for UCLA to see if they could take that next step this year. You look at their second game of the season when they host SEC Power LSU. That's a big time game on a big time stage for UCLA to try to go out there and make an impact. I think they got to find a way, throughout their slate in the Pac-12 to go out there and win a couple of these games, or win enough games rather, for Kelly to stay employed at UCLA. I'm looking at Mike Norville at Florida State, and I know that this is only his second year after coming over from Memphis, but he was 3-6 last year. And the thing is, when you're talking about Florida State, this is a very impatient fan base. Norville is the fourth head coach that Florida State has had since about 2017. And when you think about it, we saw what Florida State had a couple of years ago with Jimbo Fisher, a team that not only won a national championship, but they were also a perennial contender for that ACC championship. And ever since Jimbo left, Florida State has done a lot of backsliding in the standings in the Atlantic Coast Conference. Yes, it's only year two, but I think Norville needs to go out there and try to make an impact. I'm not saying that Florida State needs to go out there and once again become a national power. But nonetheless, it's a situation where Florida State wants to go out there and try to make an impact. You look at their schedule, it's not hard, but it's not easy either. I mean, Notre Dame comes to Tallahassee at Doak Campbell to begin the season. You're looking at a Florida State team that will travel to Chapel Hill to take on North Carolina on October 9th. That will not be an easy game. On October 30th, they'll host Clemson. And then you talk about Miami and Florida within a 3-week span going towards the end of the season. So I think the Noles need to try to go out there and win some more games this season. And, there's a possibility Norville could be 2 and done if the Noles don't get it turned around. But with that said, I think they should show some improvement. But the thing is, they can't go in there and be, 3-9 or 4-8, and Norville expect to keep his job. I hope for his sake that Florida State is able to win enough games because I definitely would like to see him get the full opportunity to ride this thing out. A guy that people are always talking about is Clay Helton, and I mean, fair or not, Clay Helton has never had everybody on board behind him as the head football coach at USC. He's 45 and 23 in parts of 7 seasons at SC. He has one Pac-12 title, 2 New Year's 6 bowl games, and he's 36 and 12 within the conference. I think the biggest thing for Helton is just like, a lot of people are still looking at this USC program and expecting them to be what they were in the early to mid 2000s under Pete Carroll. It's a situation, Clay Helton has had one losing season to his credit. He rebounded from that in 2019 as the Trojans went 8-5. But it's a situation where, if USC runs the table in the regular season, they win the Pac-12 championship, and they get to the college football playoff. If SC loses in that national semifinal, the Clay Helton detractors are going to have a field day. That's just the way it is. The bottom line is the guy wins games. And, you look at it, everything is there for the taking for USC to be in the mix to win the Pac-12 this season. So obviously, if Helton goes out there and takes care of business, he doesn't have a thing to worry about. But again, it's one of those where for some people, no matter what Helton has done at USC, it just ain't good enough. Dino Babers at Syracuse. He's 24 and 36 in 5 years with the Orange. Only 6 wins over the last 2 seasons, one bowl appearance, and no appearances in the ACC championship game. And Syracuse actually is coming off of a 1-10 campaign. You look at Babers, and this is even before he got to Syracuse. Looking back to his time at Bowling Green, he is an offensive coach. His teams can put up points, but the problem is his defenses get torched. If you look at Babers' 5 years at Syracuse, Syracuse is near the bottom in the nation in total defense. That's not going to get it done. And, I think that Syracuse, like, there's an opportunity there for them to have somewhat of a turnaround and make somewhat of an impact. And I think the biggest thing for Syracuse to do that is to take advantage of their non-conference slate of games. They're at Ohio to begin the season. They host Rutgers, a former Big East opponent. Then they host Albany and Liberty. Liberty's not going to be an easy game, but Syracuse needs to try to find a way to go undefeated in non-conference play. There's still some winnable games for them in ACC play, some tough ones as well. At Florida State, that's their first game of the conference slate, and Florida State's looking to make some strides. They host Clemson on October 15th, and Clemson, Syracuse is always giving Clemson's problems when they come to the Carrier Dome. But there are opportunities there for Syracuse to take a step up. And if they could find a way to go 7-5 or even better, obviously, I think it would be enough for Babers to keep his job with the Cuse. Staying in the ACC, I'm looking at Jeff Collins at Georgia Tech, 6-16 in 2 years with the Yellow Jackets. And of those 16 losses, 10 of them came by at least 16 points. So I think first and foremost, what Georgia Tech needs to find a way to do under Collins is compete a little bit better. Collins replaced a coach in Paul Johnson a couple of years ago who led the Yellow Jackets to a bowl game in all but 2 seasons in Atlanta. And of course, Collins has not come close to doing that. So I think this Tech offense and this Tech team as a whole needs to find a way to make some big strides here in 2021. Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. I mean, he has won games. He's 49 and 22 in 6 years at Michigan, but 0 Big Ten titles. And most importantly, if winning the Big Ten isn't important enough, he's 0-5 against Ohio State. That's the big thing at Michigan. And on top of that, we've seen Michigan struggle versus the elite teams in the nation. Of course, last year in a shortened campaign, Michigan only went 2-4. A lot of people were questioning, why is Harbaugh still there? I know he's a Michigan alum. I know that there are some people that believe in him, but I think the biggest thing for Harbaugh right now is his offense is kind of like from like 20 to 25 years ago. It hasn't caught up with the times, and that's the biggest thing that's holding him back, because if you've watched Michigan under Harbaugh, they always have a solid defensive club. It just comes down to what they can do on the offensive side of the ball, and it's really stuck in the mud. We thought that the offense would take that next step. He hasn't gotten a good quarterback play. Michigan runs the football, but they don't have that explosiveness at the receiver position to stretch the ball down the field, as well as the athlete at the quarterback position. So it's going to be interesting to see what Michigan is going to be able to do this year. I mean, Michigan is going to win nonetheless, but the bottom line is, will they win enough? You look at it, they do have some tough games on their slate. They're at Wisconsin, which, is going to be tough because they're a ranked team, and we've seen Harbaugh and Michigan struggle on the road versus ranked opponents. And of course, later in the season, it comes down to the big one to finish the regular season campaign at home versus Ohio State. So it's going to be interesting to see if Harbaugh is going to do enough for people to not clamor for him to be ousted as the head coach at Michigan. Staying in the Big Ten, I'm looking at Jeff Brom at Purdue, 19-25 in 4 years as Purdue's head football coach, 2 bowl appearances and only 1 winning season. I think the biggest thing for Brom is it's tough sledding in the Big Ten West. I mean, you think about the teams that you have to face. You look at Wisconsin. We see Iowa. an emerging Minnesota club right off the bat, just to name a few, as far as what Purdue has to deal with, not to mention the teams that you have to face potentially coming out of the Big Ten East. You look at the schedule this season for the Boilermakers: at Notre Dame, they're home for Minnesota, they're at Iowa, they're home for Ohio State, and pardon me, they're home for Wisconsin, and then they're on the road in Columbus against Ohio State. So it's not going to be an easy slate of games this season for the Boilermakers, and it's going to be interesting to see if Brom does enough to keep the folks in West Lafayette happy. And finally, somebody who is not on the hot seat, but the seat is definitely warm. And I'm going to talk about Scott Frost at Nebraska. Of course, he is an alum of Nebraska. He was a part of their last undefeated and national championship team during the 1997 season. But in 3 years as the head football coach at Nebraska, he's only 12-20, 0 winning seasons. And then we hear about a pending NCAA investigation. And you look at it, Nebraska's got to find ways to make some strides. And, you think about what Nebraska was 20 or 25 years ago on the gridiron, and they're not even close to being that right now. You look at it, I mean, there was a time when if Nebraska finished outside of the top five in the rankings, it was surprising. Nebraska's got to try to find a way to get back to that. And hopefully, Frost will be able to make some improvements this year as compared to his first 3 years in Lincoln to get this program going in the right direction. But it's not going to be easy. A very tough schedule. Nebraska travels to take on Oklahoma. They're home for Michigan. They're home for Ohio State. They're home for Iowa. But then they're at Minnesota and they're at Wisconsin. So it's going to be interesting to see. And of course, like I said, that pending NCAA investigation hanging over this program and Frost is not going to make it easier. Who is more than likely to, get the walking paper, so to speak, either at the end of the season or during the season? I'm looking at it right now. And for my money, I'm looking at Jeff Brom, possibly. Like again, but when it comes to Scott Frost, maybe that NCAA investigation will sway people in Lincoln. I mean, he has some pull there, or he has some supporters, rather, should I say, being that, like I said, he was an alum, he was a starting quarterback on that last national championship team. But the bottom line is, if you don't win and you can't get it done, no matter what you did, it's a "what have you done for me lately" society. So we're going to see what happens. Like I keep saying, in the last week or so, plenty of exciting things to look forward to during this upcoming college football campaign. I'm just talking about them, breaking them down. You've heard my conference breakdowns. This is all about the coaches on the hot seat. The next thing we'll be talking about is some Heisman hopefuls. So definitely tune in and check that out. But this is going to wrap this one up. And as always, I want to take the time out to thank you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take the time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. You can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, signing off, saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.